Colin and Alex, it is a honor to have you guys on the green room here with me today. We've had a couple of conversations together already, and what you guys are building over at Applied Bioplastics genuinely shocked me purely because when I've been looking at this entire space of recyclable plastic or compostable plastic, many times we miss that the majority of plastic is being utilized in applications where we don't want it to be decomposing. And I'll let you guys go ahead and share a little bit more about your guys' background and enlighten me and the rest of the audience a bit more on the magnitude of the problem when it comes to really trying to decarbonize our plastic supply. So Colin and Alex, it is amazing to have you here. Would love to hear a little bit about your background and also for you to share a bit more on this problem you guys are attacking.
Sure. Swarnav, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Colin Ardern, CEO of Applied Bioplastics and co-founded the company with my co-founder. I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Alex. I'm co-founder with Colin. I'm Chief Impact Officer of Applied Bioplastics. And just to start off with the background, it's kind of a fun story, but essentially, Colin and I were working here in Austin in the typically the startup industry, tech, that sort of stuff. Colin was at a e-banking company, and I was at a network monitoring software company, and essentially, I closed a deal that gave me the opportunity to make some decisions about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. It was just the world's biggest deal, at least for me, essentially that led me to hearing about the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, and deciding to address that by actually traveling over there and creating a film in the world's largest refugee camp that won several major awards. It's got picked up by a distributor. It's now on Amazon. Its name is Blossoms from Ash. But while I was there, I was introduced to a fellow named Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan. He'd spent the last 20 years of his retirement developing ways to make a plant called jute useful again. This plant had been used by the British shipping empire, was actually brought to India and Bangladesh to make rope and sailcloth and sackcloth and all the things that you need to run a big shipping empire. So in the 1980s, unfortunately, the industry and the demand for this completely collapsed as synthetic plastic fibers, which we're now seeing in the form of microplastics all over the ocean. It's a terrible mistake to move away from natural fibers, but it destroyed the demand for jute and took a big bite out of the economic sectors in India and Bangladesh. So when I was introduced to him and saw his products, this polymerization of cellulose, I said, "Wow, this could change housing." And I asked him if he'd like to work with me, and he said no. So I went home and I finished my movie, and I told Colin about it. And Colin said, you're thinking too small, man. I mean, yes, you can make housing out of this, but think about all the possible applications in the durable polymer space if this translates, essentially. And so I can't believe you took no for an answer. We've got to go back. So in 2018, Colin and I quit our jobs and went to Bangladesh for 3 months to convince this inventor that we were the right guys to commercialize his ideas. And he eventually agreed. He joined our team. And we've spent the last 2 years building a replacement for today's durable polymers. And essentially, the issue here is that 57% of all polymers are durable polymers. You see most of the alternative plastics companies, as you mentioned, working on addressing the trash problem, which is LDPE and PET, water bottles and grocery bags and other things like that. These are things that shouldn't ever be made out of plastic. We've had cloth bags for millennia. We should really go back to those things. And so these alternative polymer companies are working on that, and we're very glad that they are. But there is a major segment of the market that is unaddressed by alternative plastics companies. That is 57% of the market. It's polypropylene, it's polyethylene, it's ABS, and there's polycarbonate. There's a whole bunch of them. And the thing is with this, that they face a problem of inevitability. We have a problem with running out of oil. We are at peak oil. It's getting harder and more expensive to extract oil. So we need to stretch our supplies as much as possible. We can't be using these things for utensils and grocery bags and other things like that. We need to save it for those durable applications. But even that's not enough. So what Applied Bioplastics does is we actually stretch those supplies more. We use natural fiber to fill polymers. Number one, it decarbonizes those plastics. So we're emitting less greenhouse gases for every single application. The second thing is they cost the same. And the third thing is we can make our plastic on the same machines that everybody makes plastic on today. So there's really no change to the bottom line of the companies that need to adopt this, but they really need to adopt this. Like I said, durable polymers are going to run out, and we need to stretch them as much as possible. So that's what we do here at Applied Bioplastics.
So there's so much to unpack there, because first off, from an outsider looking into the plastics industry, the traditional response that many people tend to default into looking at is like, oh, we need biodegradable plastics because plastics are so convenient, they're so cheap, and biodegradable plastics tend to not actually be an economic replacement there. But then we tend to always overlook the plastics that we may use in airplanes and cars or in our pipes, because you mentioned like things like PVC and ABS being those durable polymers. So what I would ask you is, by reducing the petroleum concentration in the plastic making process with what I'm assuming is jute, or whatever these plant fibers are that were popular during the British Empire or the shipping empire at that point in time. Are these fibers actually reducing the cost of manufacturing for plastics manufacturers? Because if so, then it almost seems like it's just a matter of how much can you guys supply of this chemical compound or this composite material to these manufacturers so that they can meet global demand. Where does it fall on that economic side? Because I think that's a critical question that many people, from investors to even people who play in the clean tech space, tend to want to know about when it comes to plastics and, more importantly, alternative plastics.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the short term, we're able to provide product at price parity with traditional petrochemical products. As we continue to scale our production, I think we will see some efficiencies of scale where we can offer some cost savings as well. And that helps our customers. That also helps the producers. As Alex was talking about, we can help stretch that petrochemical supply. So when you see a price spike, like we did back in February during the winter storms here in Texas, polypropylene prices went up to $3,700 per metric ton. They nearly quadrupled in price, whereas our plant fiber stayed the same price. So you can see some price stabilization and some cost reduction, especially as oil becomes more scarce and polymer prices continue to rise.
Another good thought on that is thinking about the fiber that we use and the economic benefits of it to farmers and smallholders. There are other ways to get fiber as well. So we're doing experiments with agricultural waste and invasive species, so we can kill two birds with one stone. If you've got an invasive plant species, we can remove it for you and then do something useful with it. I mean, most invasive species, what you see happening is people will burn what they aren't going to use. That goes the same for agricultural waste. So that releases a ton of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, and people are just burning it because they have nothing better to do with it. We can take that stuff. We can take those invasive species. We can take that agricultural waste. We can process it and turn it into a valuable composite. And in a lot of cases, people are going to pay us to take that away from them, right? Because they otherwise they have to pay for burning it. Right. So, as far as the economics go, as Colin said, once we get to scale and once we're using a bunch of different types of agricultural products, whether they be intentionally grown, invasive, or waste, there's going to be some serious efficiencies to both our margins and to our customers' bottom lines.
So does that mean that you guys aren't affected by the seasonality? Because obviously when it comes to plastic, we're making tons probably per day, right? Is
120 million metric tons of polypropylene per year.
a day?
120
Per
million
year.
metric tons per year. But it's still in the millions per day, right?
Right. No, yeah, no, you're not wrong that the volume is so high, but then the natural, I think, insight that you guys could share a lot of light onto is, what does it really take for a plant-based fiber to be able to meet the global demand for plastics? Because even if we say, hey, we only want to fill that 57% of the total market, and sure, I'm sure you guys have developed something really unique in terms of IP, and the PhD that you guys are working with that actually created the core IP for the company. You guys have something unique, but is there anything necessarily restricting other players to coming in and then actually helping or hitting that 57%? Because I doubt a plastic manufacturer is going to want to make the move over to Applied Bioplastics or a plant-based solution unless, number one, the economics check out, and number two, the supply can meet the demand that they're facing on a day-to-day basis. And you guys have already addressed the economics and the, no process changes really, because you guys can inject right into what they're already doing today. How do you guys think about the entire side of, well, are we going to have enough supply to be able to meet the kind of global demand we have for plastic today?
Sure. So as I was saying earlier, there's a ton of different types of fiber that we can use, and it may seem like, well, agricultural waste, how much of that really could there be? But there's a lot. Humanity, wastes a great deal of its polymers. In fact, we were speaking with an investor today who had an excellent idea, which is that many oil companies that we seek to partner with, to improve their product, have included ethanol in their products. And so far, we've stayed away from using any corn-based products because there are some major issues with corn production. Raising forests and clear cutting in order to make room for corn so that people can make ethanol. However, surprisingly, there is an enormous amount of corn waste that's out there that is created by these oil companies. So what if we could take their again, agricultural waste, turn it into a filler for the product that they are making with the corn in the first place? So, the scale of the problem, you're right to identify that. That being said, however, given how many options there are, you've got to think of us as kind of the Bell Labs. And this goes for the, what about competition, right? If you think of us as the Bell Labs, we develop the formulations. We do the ideal processing of each type of agricultural product, whether it be intentionally grown, invasive, or simply waste. We can license that out to other fiber treatment companies. We actually want to encourage the foundation of other fiber treatment companies because we've developed the science. You've got your local supply of fiber and your local plastic manufacturer, right? You'd like to start a business doing what we do. Fantastic. Let us sell you the formulation. You can process your own fiber and sell it to your local thing. We don't want to be the bottleneck. We want to create tons of solutions that can address millions of tons of production and spread that out to as many people as possible. And again, this is really low capex. I would encourage anybody out there who is looking to start a business, consider fiber treatment as a business, because we want you to be one of our suppliers so that you can help us serve our customers.
It's kind of like I guess you could call it like how SaaS companies or marketplace companies work, in the sense that they provide the platform, and your guys' platform is this IP on how to use fibers or plant-based fibers and attach them to, I guess, petroleum-based chemical solutions, so that you can in fact build something just as good as traditional PVC or other kinds of durable plastics or polymers, as you guys have mentioned. So it seems like you guys have been thinking about really focusing on decarbonization, because everything you've mentioned to this point is, well, hey, if we use corn fibers, well, there might be significant carbon there might be a significant carbon footprint for using corn as opposed to, jute or using, I don't know, eggplant, right? So how have you guys been thinking about remaining a part of this circular economy, which seems to be one of the key founding values you guys really have when you're approaching the decarbonization of these durable plastics? And it seems like plastic has almost been synonymous with environmental pollution and with carbon emissions. So how are you guys approaching changing and shining a new light all the way end to end, cradle to cradle in a way, with your guys' fiber-based approach to plastic production or plastic-like production?
Great question. So one thing I want to make clear is our technology is compatible with recycled feedstock, and we're committed to incorporating both post-industrial as well as post-consumer recycled feedstock into our offerings. So we play well with the circular economy. Our material is also recyclable. With that being said, only about 9% of polypropylene gets recycled today. The remainder goes to the landfill. And so our view on this is, for the 91% of polypropylene going to the landfill, let's have it doing something beneficial while it's there. Let's have it continuing to sequester carbon indefinitely, as opposed to something like a bioplastic like PLA, which sure, it's biodegradable, but during the process of biodegradation, it emits methane and it emits greenhouse gases that are harmful to the environment.
Really? So then how do you sequester carbon when your plant-based approach ends up in a landfill?
So the plant cycle, essentially when a plant is alive, what it's doing is it's taking in CO2 and releasing oxygen. But that CO2, it isn't just, the plant doesn't eat it, right? Like it goes into the soil and it stays in the plant as well. So that carbon in the soil, that's great. But once you harvest it, there's still carbon in the plant itself, right? It's a carbon-based life form just like us. So essentially, when you trap that plant material into the polymer, and with our particular science, it is polymerized itself. It's like trapping a fly in amber, essentially. It stays there indefinitely. So it actually acts as a carbon sink. It's not an active carbon sink, it's a passive carbon sink for as long as it's sitting there in the landfill.
And is that significant of a carbon sink? Meaning, let's say tomorrow, magically, Applied Bioplastics had partners and licensees, and now all 57% of global plastic contains your guys' formulation. What's the kind of magnitude we're talking when you're talking about carbon sequestration?
Essentially, you'd be taking about 287 million cars off the road right off the bat.
If you guys filled that full 57%.
Actually, that's with 8% market penetration from us.
Okay, so there is significant impact. I'll leave it at that. But I guess switching gears, because it seems like this is something that should have been implemented a long time ago. Then, what's been the main reason a plant-based fiber solution? If really you're saying, hey, with 8%, of applied bioplastic solution out in the market, we're meeting cost parity with traditional plastics. And with 8%, we're taking the effect of 280 million cars off the road. And on top of that, we're sequestering carbon post-life when it's in a landfill. And it's recyclable in nature. Plus, we can tap into various different kinds of plant fibers that may also be emitting carbon because of the way they're being utilized today. So it sounds like, well, why wouldn't we be doing this? But what's kept the market from implementing this until today? Because it almost sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, so there's a few different factors. First of all, there are a few fairly major challenges with developing this technology related to adhesion of the fiber with the polymer matrix, as well as processing and treating the fiber in a way that effectively lets it polymerize. But I guess outside of the technological and operational hurdles, I think it's a combination of brands not being interested or willing to switch over to a decarbonized solution because they didn't have any justification to do so until now. It's only been the past few years when consumers are starting to wake up to the fact that emissions are a major problem, and it's something where we're driving off a cliff and we need to slow down the bus. So the timing wasn't really right up until now, and as a result, there wasn't really interest in commercializing this technology.
And is that because the problem wasn't felt, you believe, by these different manufacturers and players in the space that, hey, until people actually complain that we're using plastic packaging that harms the environment, there's no real reason for us to switch a part of our supply chain when we can focus on our core product?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if you look at, I don't want to alienate our future customers and licensees here, but I will say that the people who were in charge in the 1970s and 1980s of the large extractive companies, the ones that are taking resources out of the ground, had a vested interest in continuing to do things the way that they were doing them, right? And you can't really assail the characters of the people who are in charge today. But at the time, there was a big, almost propagandistic push to get consumers feeling like their consumption was truly driving greenhouse gases, and their consumption was the problem. Even Earth Day was a creation of a lobbying group that was funded by big oil, making consumers feel as though it was their problem for not recycling. But the reality is that they were resistant to change. They were making lots of money by not changing. And they were helping people feel like it is each of our individual responsibilities to reduce the species' carbon emissions. So I think it's almost like the electric car, right? A viable one was invented in the 1970s. The companies that were doing things with oil-based vehicles said, you know what, this is a threat to the way we do things, and we don't want to change. So we're going to buy it and we're going to squish it. The reality is that natural fiber composites have been around since 1945. And, unfortunately, that science hasn't really progressed because there's a vested interest in not funding it. That being said, the reason that we're different and the reason that we have this technology in our hands now is truly due to the heroism and the guy who put his own dollars, or taka really, because he was in Bangladesh, into developing this solution. He didn't need anybody else. He didn't need anybody else's funding. He said, I'm gonna try to make something that works here, and that's cost effective here. And because I'm retired and I've already got all my money, it doesn't really matter to me. I've just got my lab, and I'm going to keep plugging away until I have a solution. And we were lucky enough to be able to capitalize on that and bring him along with us and take his dream to the rest of the world here. But yeah, institutional research was not funded into these areas. And I think that's a big reason why, although the tech has been available for at least 2 decades, nobody's done anything with it.
So it seems like it's really market timing more so than anything else, really, is that there's finally a pull from the market for solutions like this. And serendipitously, you guys stumbled upon the right technology, the right co-founders, and had the right connections to be able to get as far as you guys have so far. So
absolutely.
that makes that I think the only way you can look at that, it is blessed. But I guess with that being said, the one parting question I'd love to ask from you guys is, what do you guys see in this market happening right now that gets you guys really excited that most people tend to not see? What's something that you guys have learned from playing in the plastic space, beyond the fact that 57% of all plastic is not supposed to be designed to be biodegradable? That's still blowing my mind. But what's that really key market movement or trend happening that's exciting to anyone who's in the plastics industry day to day like you guys, that people may not be able to see from the outside in other sectors of clean tech, or investors that might be fascinated in the space?
Sure. So something that excites me, I'll go with 2 things. One is the amount of activity in the space is absolutely incredible. The number of companies and the quality of companies that are working on fixing the problem give me hope that, in the next 10, 20 years, we'll be doing a lot better as a species. The other aspect of this is the degree of pull from brands for solutions is, great. Like, I don't want to say overwhelming, but brands
Like,
really
is it genuine pull now?
There really is, and we're seeing that. So having a lot of really great conversations with brands that are truly looking to find better alternatives now, where a few years ago they weren't really looking. So I'm really excited about that trend.
Awesome.
I want to echo that. When we started out even 2 years ago, we one of the first things that Colin and I did was we prospected, we cold called, we said, would you be interested? Right. And, shout out to CVS Health. They were the first one who was just like, yes, we've been looking for solutions, but almost everybody else turned us down. Right. And here we are 2 years later. You see the major court case with Shell yesterday, the activist investors at Chevron and Exxon taking over and saying, we are going to make a commitment. All in the last year, you've seen all of these written commitments from all of these massive brands saying, we recognize now that this is a problem, whether we were denying it before or just ignoring the problem. We recognize that it's a problem and that we're ready to be part of the solution. And that's super encouraging. I mean, I feel like, as you said earlier, like blessed, right? Like we serendipitously found this technology. We built the right team to scale it out. And then just as we're really getting going and we're about to raise investment to establish our fiber pretreatment facilities to get this stuff going, all of a sudden in the last 6 months, you see all of these brands just commitment in 10 years, commitment in 20 years. Sometimes you see the 2050 commitments, which is a little disappointing, but the 2030 commitments and the 2040 commitments are amazing. So there's that. And then the other piece is that you see a lot of investors looking at this space as well. I think the problems with alternative plastics that biodegrade are becoming well known. The endocrine issues that can result from different kinds of chemicals and in the polymer industry as a whole are becoming known. So it's less blind capitalism and more, hey, how do we intentionally build the future that we want? I mean, like, we don't want a Mad Max hellscape for our children. So like, let's do something a little bit different. And so that's incredibly encouraging. The other piece is institutional buy-in. Banks, the big oil, like, I think they're always going to be the last to change no matter what the issue is. But we're seeing that today, and that's super exciting. Absolutely.
Awesome. So I guess then is Applied Bioplastics hiring? And if so, you guys are welcome to plug that. And regardless, if people wanted to stay in touch with either of you guys or had some questions about how you guys are delivering impact and wanted to continue the conversation beyond here, how could they reach you? How could they follow Applied Bioplastics and maybe even potentially join the team at some time in the future?
Yeah, so we did recently start an internship program. It's currently full up, but we do expect to be hiring close to the end of the summer again. You can follow us on Twitter at @bioplastics. You can follow us on Instagram as well. And if you'd like to reach out with questions or like to submit your resume, please email us at hello@appliedbioplastics.com.
Awesome. Well, Alex, Colin, it's a pleasure. And thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much for having us, Swarnav.
Thanks, Swarnav.
Cool stuff.